I hope everyone is well and safe, and staying away from all the external noise. Today, we promised you a Hatha yoga class with some deep stretch. And that is what we're going to give you. But today, I decided to put the focus of the Hatha portion and also, a little bit of the deep stretch into lateral side bending. Lateral side bending is something that we need to do daily. We don't, because we sit in chairs all day long. And the whole package of today is going to be about creating space. So I have a lot of info for you today before we practice. And so first things first, if you have a bolster or pillow or blocks, please grab them. If you need a strap, grab them. Get your mat out. Get everything out that you need for today's practice. Important. We're going to do seated, standing, and lying positions. We're going to do, again, the focus is going to be on lateral side bending. So be very mindful of that. Yeah. So in lateral side bending, I am going to talk about how the psoas and the diaphragm affect our lateral side bending. And so it's going to be a little interesting for you. So let's talk a little bit about creating space though. Yeah. So all this talk and turmoil and noise and movement and desire is outside of the veil. And within the veil is silence and calm and rest. There's so much external stuff and so many distractions and so much stuff going on outside, and so many shiny objects that a lot of prominent people are trying to distract you with as a society. And it's quite exhausting. Go within. Understand that the distractions are just distractions. And to create space, we need to go within. And these are perfect opportunities for us. We have the time at home. Don't watch the news so much, for crying out loud. Yeah. We need to create space if we desire to change and grow. Only in emptiness can meaning, intuitive guidance, and truth arise. Give yourself space by spending time in nature. Take an hour or two a day off, enjoying quiet moments for reflection. Take time to smell the roses, yogis. Breathe in the wonder of life and its bounty. Open so your deeper awareness and imagination can percolate through mundane thoughts and activities. Let go of both resistance and force to allow yourself to connect more deeply to life. And I love this quote. I do only want to advise you to keep growing quietly and seriously throughout your whole development. You cannot disturb it more rudely than by looking outward and expecting from outside replies to question that only your innermost feeling in your most hushed hour can perhaps answer. There's nothing out there, yogis, that's going to answer any of your questions. It's just going to pull you into the distraction. And distracting it is. It's quite amazing, actually. I am glad that so much movement happens in stillness. The movement happens in stillness. The growth happens in our stillness. And and in how long have we been in this craziness? 8-9 months now. And people are still resisting it. It's like, take the time to work on yourself and to work and be with your family. Take the time to listen and to love. Stop being distracted and pulled in by the shiny object. And I could say that because I could witness it. But those of you who are in it are in it. And those, if you know people that are in it, they're in it. And it's like they have tar on them, it's like the tar has to be pulled off of them in order for them to see the truth of the things. And we could only wait and observe with love and compassion. So yogis, I do want to continue our conversation so we can get into the asana portion. So today is about creating space, and the space that we're talking about are asymmetrical movements and lateral movements, because those movements are asymmetrical, right? They're asymmetrical movements. I have to do right and left sides. We're also going to talk about creating space in between the rib cage, creating space in the thighs and the hips, creating space in the lower back, creating space in the chest, right? So we want to create this space, yogi, so that we can really feel that and embody that. And so that's a word that I do want you to get used to hearing, is embodying. Yoga, or Hatha yoga, really is about embodying the space of that thing. Yeah. And so when we're in the shiny object, it's very difficult to embody any space, because you can't hold any space except the friggin' shiny object. So yoga, it also teaches about sankalpa. And sankalpa is a Sanskrit word, and I've written all this down. It's a Sanskrit word that means resolution or intention, usually in association with the practice of yoga nidra. And for those of you who've taken my yoga nidra cert, we talk about Swami Sarananda a lot, Satyananda Saraswati a lot, because he's the one that brought to the table a little bit more emphasis on sankalpa. So according to Swami Satyananda Saraswati, sankalpa has the potential to release tremendous power by clearly defining and focusing on one chosen goal. It's a resolution, right? It's clearly, succinctly understanding what is it that you want and what is your purpose. Is your purpose to follow the shiny object? I doubt that seriously. The focus of this is to illustrate the subtle yet powerful myofascial connections between the diaphragm and the iliopsoas muscle all the way down to the feet. So we're going to spend a little time in the pose that we know as Trikonasana today. Uttita Trikonasana. It's not going to be the only pose that we do, but we will do that pose so that we can start to feel the lateral motion of the feeling of the iliopsoas and how the diaphragm moves along with that in the pose, and how connected the diaphragm and the iliopsoas are. This is one, understanding and visualizing connections in poses like Trikonasana enable us to do the same in other poses. This is a way of employing sankalpa, that resolution to feel, the resolution to start to visualize. What is that? How does it feel? And so, and I constantly tell you that our body is a learning device. And so when I try to get you into the asana, I'm trying to have you visualize something, visualize that and feel that moving with you. If we could start to do that with this learning device, we can definitely start to do that with a lot of other resolutions that we have, right? The diaphragm, let's go into what the diaphragm is. The diaphragm, as we know, is the central muscle for breathing. It operates mostly unconsciously, though we can consciously influence its rate and depth of contraction. As the central muscle of breathing, the diaphragm is inexorably linked to our life force and thus our emotions and energetic body, right? Practicing yoga asana influences the diaphragm in subtle ways, particularly through its connection to the psoas. In fact, every pose has a slightly different effect on the diaphragm and thus on its energetic connections. Visualization is a powerful tool, and you can use it to access these connections. All right. And so I do, in practice today, I do want you to, first we're going to do some pranayama, and then I want you to visualize how the diaphragm is going to move with us, right? So our psoas, we know, our psoas is very highly talked about in yoga. It's a little bit too much. It's talked about a little bit too much, but the psoas is a highly vigilant, highly contracted muscle because we're bipeds, right? We've talked about that in previous lessons. But the diaphragm is so connected to the psoas that they are both emotionally charged muscles. And so in order for us to understand that feeling, we need to visualize the placement of the diaphragm when we move and how we breathe. I invite you to do that today. Yeah. The thoracic diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle that separates the chest and the abdominal cavities. The contractile part of this muscle is located peripherally, inserting into a central tendon. And we have, it's because I teach about tendons and muscles, you think that the tendon is attaching a muscle to a bone here, but it's not connected to a bone. This central tendon, this particular one. The origins of the muscle are divided into coastal and lumbar regions. The coastal portion originates from the inner surfaces of ribs 7 through 12. The lumbar portion has both medial and lateral aspects. The medial aspects of the diaphragm arise from the first 3 lumbar vertebrae, L1 to L3. And the lateral aspects arise from 3 tendinous arches. The first tendinous arch is associated with the abdominal area. The second and third with the psoas and quadratus lumborum muscles respectively. And that's why we are talking about lateral movements. That QL is responsible for stabilizing us in our lateral movements. Yeah. So engaging the diaphragm with the glottis when we start to breathe in that Ujjayi fashion. Yeah. When we're breathing in and out through the nose and we feel the air pass through the back of the throat and the glottis, it opens and expands the rib cage and produces a pressure gradient. And so we feel this kind of squeezing, right? By lowering interthoracic pressure. The negative inspiratory pressure causes air to be drawn into the lungs, thus equalizing the gradient. These fluctuating pressure gradients also facilitate blood flow, particularly venous return to the heart. Conversely, contracting the diaphragm after exhale with the glottis closed also produces a pressure gradient. So when we're exhaling and you feel the lower parts of the belly coming towards the midline and flattening, right underneath the belly button, it produces that pressure gradient. In this case, the negative inspiratory pressure draws the abdominal content upward. Engaging the diaphragm on exhale with the glottis closed is a form of eccentric or isometric contraction, whereby a muscle is engaged in its lengthened state, but it is not shortened. Engaging the abdominals during exhale passively stretches the diaphragm by raising the intra-abdominal pressure and lifting the abdominal organs upward against the muscle. Note that the engaging the abdominals on exhale also tenses the thoracolumbar spine. So this becomes very protected. So yogis, when I ask you to exhale, right, this is Ujjana Bandha. This is really protected. It also protects the lower back, the thoracolumbar region of the lower portion of the mid back and the lower back. It all comes in together. So we exhale, we inhale, we feel these pressure gradients that happen because of the diaphragm is helping us do that. And now let's talk a little bit about the iliopsoas muscles. The psoas major, and I've talked about this a million times before with you, originates from the vertebral bodies of T12, L1 through L4, with a deeper layer originating from L1 and L5. It combines with the iliacus muscle, which originates on the inside of the ilium, to form the iliopsoas muscle. The iliopsoas runs over the rim of the pelvis to insert into the lesser trochanter, a knob-like structure on the upper inside of the femur. The iliopsoas crosses multiple joints and is thus considered a polyarticular muscle. When contracting on one side, it can act to flex and externally rotate the femur or laterally flex the trunk, like in Trikonasana, or tilt one side of the pelvis forward. When the iliopsoas contracts on both sides, it can flex both femurs and the trunk. Bilaterally contracting the muscle lifts the trunk from a supine position. So I'm on my back and I lift up halfway to do a sit-up. That's your psoas, your iliopsoas muscle. It's contracting bilaterally. It's pulling us up, right? Even from a flex position down, I have to lift myself up. So yogis, Sankalpa and creative visualization are the two of the 8 components of Yoga Nidra, right? Sankalpa and visualization. So in today's practice, I do want you to use both. I want you to think about the muscles that are working. I want you to think about the breath that's moving through the body. And I also want you to, that is a part of a Sankalpa for today, that I am imposing on you. Of course, you're going to set your own Sankalpas, but today is really about, can I feel the pressure gradients that are happening in the body? Can I feel the diaphragm moving with me? Can I notice how the psoas is kind of pulling me up and down, flexing the trunk, laterally extending the trunk? Can I feel the QL muscles in the back, both flanks, the side of the spine, right? The QL stabilizes us in all these movements. And of course, the abdominal complex is really uberly working for us. So we have the psoas, the abdominal complex, the QL, the psoas. We have all these muscles that are working for us, yogis, and the diaphragm. So yogis, I do want you to think about these muscles, what's happening today, and when we go from side to side, we're alternating and stretching and contracting each sides of the body. They stretch the muscles between the ribs and the pelvis. It increases our spinal flexibility. It opens the sides of the rib cage. It stretches the intercostals. It develops strength, specifically the abdominal region. It tones your waist. It improves digestion. The latissimus dorsi muscles, we are stretching that as well. Yogis, it brings awareness to the side bodies. So it also gives a lot of hip release to the psoas. It gives a lot of opening to that QL. It does a lot because we sit in chairs all day long. Yeah, and we dump, my favorite word of the day is dump a lot of the times. These lateral movements to the side need to be done, yogis, and a lot of the times we don't do them. I don't know, unless you take a Bikram class with me or Pachi or someone at the studio, you're not really doing these side bends, and they're very, very important, yogis, also to elicit back bending. I can't tell you how many benefits there are to side bending. So we're going to get into that. So yogis, I invite you to find a seat and let's start some breathing exercises. Finding those sits bones, yogis. And so here we are with our beautiful diaphragm that's going to push up, right? Push up the lungs, and that's going to contract. And then when they pull down, inhale, it contracts. Exhale, it expands. And so it just opens us up to all of this portion in the body, right? That gets stuck because we sit so much. Take a deep breath, yogis, and arrive in your place. And just notice your breath, the quality of the breath. Creating space, yogis, for yourself in the silence. And maybe just by hearing your breath and your heartbeat. Maybe some ambient noises. Yoga is about you, yogis. And it's about how we respond to the external experiences in our life. Create space everywhere. I want you to turn your attention to the breath as we inhale and exhale through the nose. Noticing how the diaphragm expands and contracts. Trying to visualize that dome-shaped muscle pushing up against the lungs and then down. On the inhale, the diaphragm contracts. And on the exhale, the diaphragm expands. Couple more breaths like this, yogis. Placing your hands on your heart center, yogis. Set your own sankalpa. I know I've set one for this practice, but set your own. Beautiful, yogis. And take a moment. So we're just going to find a seat, a comfortable seat, Sukhasana. Just let your head move from side to side and then bring it back towards the center. And look all the way to the right, lifting up in the belly, squeezing the pelvic floor and come up towards the midline. And then look all the way to the left. Come back to the midline. Let your right ear go to the right shoulder and then tilt it forward a bit. And you'll feel a tremendous stretch on the left side of the neck and shoulder. And then come back up towards the center line. Let your left ear drop to your left shoulder. And then let your eye gaze look to the right. Trying to get in touch with both sides of the body very easily, right? Noticing right and left sides. Take a breath. Interlacing your fingers and pressing knuckles, pressing hands towards whatever's in front of you. Lift your arms up over your head and just feel this symmetry, right, for a moment. And then let's go to the right. Feeling the diaphragm moving with us in one piece. Inhale, come up. Exhale, expand. Inhale, come up. Yogis, take a breath. And release the arms. Just let your shoulders move up and down. Taking your right hand to your left knee, twist, and then look to the right. Coming back towards the midline. Inhale. Creating space. Exhale, more space as we look to the left. Coming back towards the midline. Yogis, if you notice I'm sitting on my zabu, but I'm going to use it as a prop. If you need to get blankets or a bolster, then get that. I just want you to get into this very mild lateral bend on the floor. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to lie on it sideways. Yes? So I'm going to do this side first because the mic pack is on this side, but I just want you to find a space, extending the legs, and then reaching your arms over your head. Now, if this really bothers you, you can just place your top arm over onto the zabu, or if you need to place your hand on your head, do that. But here's a nice side stretch. Take a breath. Now take that top arm over onto the floor and then just lift up for lying Buddha for a moment. This is an excellent pose to start to get into the visualization or the sensation of side body. You're going to take 2 more breaths here, yogis. Incredible, right? How simple it is, and we can feel the whole side body stretching. Good. Placing that left elbow down, yogis, take a breath. We're going to lie our bellies onto that bolster or blanket, and then we're going to just turn, and we're going to do the opposite side. So remember, if you can, extend your arms over your head. If you need to, place your head into your hands and place that left hand on a bolster or on the floor. Good, yogis. If you're down on the ground, we're going to place our hands on the floor, reaching and then lifting the torso and just finding that side bend. Creating space. And then gently lower. Such a wonderful feeling. Belly on the bolster again, yogis, take a breath. Yeah. And then cover the bolster and just lift your chest up a bit. And then lower down, bringing your knees in. Good. And just sitting up for breath. Good, yogis. Take a moment. We're going to move the zabu or your bolsters. Now, coming onto all fours, I just want you to do some cat-cows. Now we're going to do Chakravarkasana. So we're going to press back towards our heels and bending the elbows, forehead to the ground. And then press your sternum towards whatever's in front of you, lifting up in a slight extension. Again, tucking chin in towards chest, rocking back towards your heels, bending the elbows, placing your forehead on the ground, and then coming forward. Sternum is leading as we lift up and a little extension. Again, pressing away, hips to heels, forehead to ground, bending the elbows, and just stay here for a moment. And finding this child's pose with my arms extended. Notice the spine. Notice everything. Notice your breath. Notice the crease in the tops of the hips. Now, starting to walk your hands to the right. Again, finding this lateral movement. coming to the center. Going to the left and finding that lateral movement again. And coming back to the center. And breathe here, yogis. And visualize that diaphragm as it expands and contracts, and how it starts to lengthen all parts of the body, but also how we feel here in the abdominal complex, right? We're lifting up in the pelvic floor, squeezing the lower belly, feeling that pressure gradient, but without any tension. Good. Now come up onto all fours, yogis, and take a breath. Reach your right arm forward and extend the left leg back. Roll everything towards the midline. Here's an asymmetrical move. We're lifting right arm and left leg. And then lower that down. So again, we're going to take the right leg back, left hand forward, and then lift up. And then release that. And take a moment. Extending the right leg behind you. Bringing the right foot forward. Feeling that psoas. Rolling everything towards the midline. Bringing your hands up to your quadricep. And just taking a moment. Then taking this left hip, right, your ilium, and then just pulling it back a little bit and feeling that psoas a little bit more as you reach a little bit further forward with that right leg. Pulling this left ilium back just a tiny and taking a moment and holding that space while you breathe and observing your breath. And then place your hands on the ground, yogis, lifting the chest. Bring that left leg back. Lengthen the spine. Take your left leg forward, yogis, and take a moment. Rolling everything in towards the midline. Bringing your hands on your quads. And just stand upright, right? Or kneel upright is appropriate. You're going to take your right hand on your right ilium and then tuck it back. Don't just pull it back. I use the word I don't like to use very much. So we want to pull that right ilium back and lift up and then reach a little bit further forward with this left knee, right? But that knee is really over the second toe. And lift your chest and then place your hands. Hold that lifted space and lift your chest, rolling everything towards the midline. Notice how your diaphragm is really holding everything together. Feeling the stretch in that psoas. Take another breath and placing your hands on the ground and coming back into this all fours. Take a breath here, yogis. Taking that right foot forward, bringing your hands onto your quads. Lifting up again. If you need blocks, yogis, that's what you're using. Take your left hand on that left hip and pull it back a little bit. And take a moment here. Delicious. Good. Arms up over the head. Grab a hold of the pointy parts of the elbows. Lift up again and let that left hip point go back, right? But lift your arms up and then just slightly bring the right elbow to the right. Inhale, come up. We're going to do that again. Let the right elbow go to the right. Exhaling, but lifting at the same time. Inhale, come up. Take a breath, yogis. Lift up, up, up. And then fold forward, tucking the back toes underneath you. And taking a moment. Lowering the back knee down, coming into all fours, yogis. Taking the left foot forward. Bringing your hands to your quads. Bringing that right hip back slightly as you lift up and breathe. Grab the pointy parts of your elbows and lift up. Up. And then take the left point of the elbow and go to the left. Notice that right side. Notice the left side compressing, and take a breath. Open up the chest. Inhale, come up. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, pressing glutes, engaging glutes, pressing hips forward and reaching that left elbow to the left. Inhale, come up. Lift up, yogis. Squeeze glutes, pressing hips forward as that ilium tilts backwards. Lift up a little bit more and then placing hands on the floor, tucking the back toes underneath you, coming into that left side lunge. Lower the right knee down and come into the all fours. Take a breath. Bringing your right foot forward, yogis. Take a breath. Take a breath. Bringing the hands onto the quads. Yes, engage the glutes and then bring that left hip back, right? As you press the hips forward, lifting arms up, engaging the side body, feeling the intercostals, creating space. Now, if you can, just let the right elbow go to the right. If you need a block, use it. Just place the right hand on the ground if that's possible, and lift this left arm up and go to the right. Reach to the right. Don't let your right knee go to the right. Take a breath here, and then replace the hands. First, frame your foot. And then place the left hand on the ground. Lift the right arm up. And then just reach just a tiny to the left. Framing the foot. Taking a moment. Now bring that left foot in a little bit. And then face the left side. So we're coming into this Parigasana. Placing that right hand on the right leg. Lifting the left arm up. And just don't go all the way yet. I just want you to feel this, about what is this, 35, 45 degrees. And then lift up, yogis. Bringing that sternum forward. Coming back to the center, yogis. And then pivot gently. Pick up that back foot and then tuck the toes. Extend the back leg. Take a moment here. Bend the knee, come onto all fours. Bringing that left foot forward. Coming up, yogis. Get your pelvis right. So I don't want you to have this lordotic curve, yeah? This is not the pose. This is over time. This is going to really not be great for you. So I want you to lift, press hips, press this hip point back as I engage my glutes and I press the whole thing forward. So take a breath, lift the arms up, create space, feel the diaphragm working for us. Now go to the left a little bit. And if you need to stay here, stay here. If you need to put your hands on blocks, do that. The left hand is going to go down to the ground and the right arm is going to reach up and then to the left. Looking down at your left foot, frame it. Just keeping the right hand down, lift the left arm up. And then if you can, just a teeny tiny bit, just reach to the right and feel that space. Feel the diaphragm moving with you. And then release that. Take a moment. We're going to bring that right foot in, a tiny. We're going to turn the left toes to the right. And then coming into this Parigasana. Yeah? So left hand on left leg. Lift the right arm up. And find the space as I reach up. So I don't want to press my butt back. I want to lift up and tilt the hips backwards as I press them forward. So lift up, yogis, and then reach about 45 degrees to the left. Notice that if that left shoulder goes back, bring it forward. Bring the left side of the rib cage forward, the left hip forward. Take a moment here, yogis, and feel the stretch of the space in between the rib cage. Notice how the diaphragm is going with us and how the psoas is as well. And how the QL, right, on the back sides of the body are stabilizing us. Press foot down, inhale, come up. Turn to the left. Frame your foot, tuck the back toes under and find a left side lunge. You're doing great. This is not easy stuff, right? Take another breath. Good. Lower the back knee down and come onto all fours. Take a moment, yogis, and then come into down dog. So yogis, look in between your hands and just take your right foot in between your feet. So lengthen both of your legs. Pick up the back heel and then pick up the front leg for a little bit of Parsvatanasana action. We're going to turn towards the left. So all 10 toes are going to be facing the left side. Roll, so just hinge forward a little bit here. Engage your quadriceps. Now, I want you to place your hands on your hips, and then I want you to feel yourself being hoisted up, right? Your psoas. Lift up, and your hamstrings. Take a breath. Beautiful job, yogis. So, we're in Prasarita, right? This open legged position. We're going to turn the right toes to the right, and we're going to open up our stance so that we can come into this open before prep for warrior two, right? So take a breath. Your heel is in front of the back arch as you bend that right knee. Find the spine. So this is an asymmetrical pose because one leg, I'm working to the right now. I'm going to lift my arms up over my head and interlace my fingers. And I'm just going to take this pose to the right. And then come back up towards the center. Press feet down, lift arms up, and let's take that to the right again. Notice the left side. Inhale, come up. Notice the right side. Notice how your diaphragm moves with you. And then open up the arms. Straighten your legs. And then reach the right arm to the right. Lower the hand down. We're coming into that Trikonasana. Either to the floor, to your shin, to your big toe. Whatever you got going on, yogis, a block, and lift the hand up. Lift up in that diaphragm. Feel everything moving in one piece. You got your QL helping you. You have your intercostals. We have, our intercostals. We have our psoas helping us in this pose. And the diaphragm is actually helping it all happen. Take another breath. Lift your arm up directly over your head, making one line with your shoulders, pressing hips forward. If your neck bothers you, please look down at the ground. We're going to stay here for another 2 breaths. Good. Look down at the right foot if you're not there already. Bend the knee and then lift that back heel up off of the ground. And take a breath. We're going to come back into that Parsvottanasana. And then just sweep the right leg back and find a three-legged dog. Down dog. Pressing index finger and thumb into the ground. Lift your eye gaze and then bring your left foot forward. Come into that Parsvottanasana again. Breathe, yogis, feeling the diaphragm expand and contract. Feeling the psoas flexing and extending. And feeling your QL stabilizing everything. Lift up in the belly, yogi, squeezing the pelvic floor and roll towards the right until you find the Prasarita position. Take a breath. All 10 toes are facing the right. If you want to do a little forward fold action, do it. Feels good. Placing hands on your hips, yogis, hoist yourself up. And breathe. Turning the left toes to the left, making sure that the left heel is in front of the right arch. So you might want to open up your stance. Open up your arms. We're finding this prep before warrior two. And you're going to bend that left knee. Here, feel the right heel onto the ground as I lift my arms up over my head. Take a breath here, yogis, and let's go to the left. Press feet down, inhale, keeping that left knee bent. Lift up, touch the ceiling, yogis, engage those glutes. The right hip is rolling forward a bit. Feel the right heel into the ground. Lift fingertips up, inhale. Exhale. Let's go to the left and then keep breathing, yogis, in and out through your nose. Bringing that left side of the rib cage forward. Don't let the right shoulder go in. Take another breath and reach, reach, reach. Press feet down, inhale, come up. Open out your arms, yogis, and then straighten the front leg. Engage your legs, yogis, as you reach to the left, lowering the hand down for your shin, your block, your toe, whatever you got going on. And then reach that arm up over your ear, straight, right? And just reach it over your ear towards the front for a moment. Feeling the expansion in the rib cage, pressing your hips forward, engage your glutes, press feet down. Now lift your arm up towards the ceiling, making one line with your shoulders. We're going to stay here for another 3 breaths. If your head bothers you, please look down at the ground. Press feet down, inhale, yogis, come up. Windmill your arms down to frame your foot. Pick up the back heel and then come into that Parsvottanasana again. Sweeping that left leg back, finding a 3-legged dog. Down dog. Take 2 breaths here, yogis, and try to neutralize everything. Elevate the heels, yogis, and then bend your knees to the mat. And lower yourself down onto your heels and take a breath. Yogis, we are going to lie on our spines. And just take a breath. Bring your knees into your chest. Just move your knees right and left like little levers. Then gently release the legs down. Extend the legs down towards the edges of your mat. Arms come up over your head. And let the arms go to the right. And let your legs go to the right, creating this banana or half moon shape. You can cross your legs at the ankles if you like, but don't let the left shoulder come up off of the ground. So yogis, notice how the diaphragm moves with your spine, with the psoas. Notice the contraction on one side, the expansion on the other. Notice the expansion in the chest. Open up, yogis. Then gently release the legs and then release the arms and coming back towards the midline. So bend your elbows slightly and so feel the backs of your hands on the ground. Then get your legs back underneath you in a nice long position. And just take a moment. Extending your arms over your head and then walking your arms to the left as you let your legs go to the left. Crossing the legs at the ankles. Notice anything you feel, right? Maybe on the right side of the rib cage, on the lower part of the rib cage, and then also right in that psoas, right? And into the hip flexors, the quadratus lumborum on the back of the body. But notice the compression on the left side. Notice everything about you. And then release that. Bending the elbows, just gently coming back towards the midline. And just notice, yogis, how much more space we have to breathe. How our intracostals feel a little bit more lofty, right? We have a lot of more space there because we've moved it around. Yeah, we've created that. So just take one more breath. We're gonna roll to the right. The left. My left arm is over my head. And I'm gonna roll to the left. So my left arm is still extended. My legs are extended to the right. And I'm gonna come back into that lying Buddha like we did in the beginning of class. So these are deep stretches, and I kind of infused them within the practice. I guarantee that you did feel the big, deep stretching of that all. Take one more breath here. These are so beneficial, these poses, and we don't do them very often in a vinyasa practice. And then release that down, coming onto the spine, and then right arm over your head. We're going to roll to the right. So we're on the right hip, and we're going to press ourselves up into this lying Buddha. And then release that. Coming onto your spine, yogis, taking a breath. Soles of your feet together, yogis, knees out to the side. If you like to place bolsters or blocks underneath your knees, use them. Take one more breath here. And then gently bring your knees together, feet on the mat. Just bring your right knee into your chest. Keeping your left knee bent, just roll to the left, keeping your left hand on your right knee and letting the left knee drop as well. And just open up your right arm and look to the right. Coming back to the center, yogis, it's not long. And then lowering the right foot down onto the ground, keeping the right knee bent and bringing the left knee into the chest. Keeping your right hand on your left knee, placing your left hand on the ground, and then twist. Let the left knee go to the right, and then you look to the left. And coming back towards the midline. Bringing feet on the ground. Taking a breath here, yogis. Exhale. Inhale here. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Gently finding your Shavasana, yogis. Creating space and working inwardly in these quiet, silent spots to visualize our resolve. Yogis, if you need to wake up and get on with your Sunday, wake up with me. If not, you could stay in the Shavasana for as long as you want. You know that. But when you do wake up, make sure that you wake up mindfully and slowly. But if you're waking up, yogis, try to find some movement. And roll to the side, eventually finding a seat. Bring hands to heart center, yogis. So yogis, yoga is about creating space. The space in your world, in your mind, in your inner locus. Don't let the shiny object occupy your space. And we become these projections of that shiny object. Today, yogis, think about these things: sankalpa, visualization. Think about creating space with your resolve. And when we work these lateral side bending of the body, it creates so much space. When we connect to our diaphragm, our breath, our psoas, our quadratus lumborum. I know those are little geeky terms for you. But just the visualization of what happens inside of us can bring us deeper inside. Yoga is about creating space. May you be happy, yogis. May you have beautiful, peaceful, loving space around you and within you. Have a wonderful Sunday. Sat Nam and Namaste.